Come together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. With this thought, I welcome you all. Good morning, everyone. Today we talk about chapter 17, the United Nations. In this session, we will talk about world wars, the formation of the United Nations, structure of the United Nations, special agencies, achievement of the UN, and India's contribution to the United Nations. What is United Nations? If I explain to you in a very simple terms, if you are fighting with one of your sibling really hard, like here, so who comes to the rescue? It generally your parents. They tell you not to fight. Same goes in your school. If you have an issue in school, to whom will you go for help? Definitely, it's your teacher. So, the UN is doing the same thing for the world, maintaining peace and looking forward to the issues going on in the countries, prevent wars globally. So let's take a quick look on the wars happened in the past. World War I broke out in August 1914, a terrible war in which several nations were involved. The war started in Europe when the industrialized nations of the world became jealous of each other's power. Each country wanted its own empire to grow. This war resulted many people killed, city destruction and shortage of food. After few years, World War II broke out in September 1939 and ended in 1945. The destruction was greater than World War I. USA dropped atomic bombs over two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this is how the nations of the world learnt a lesson and wanted to put an end to war. And this is how the United Nations formed. After World War II, the nations of the world came together to find ways preventing war in the future. As a result of their wise views, the UN formed. The UN formed in 1945. Some set of rules were formed which were called the Charter of the United Nations. They were made at a conference in San Francisco in USA. It was signed by 50 member countries on 24 October 1945. Today, 193 countries are member of the United Nations. Aims of the United Nations. The main aim of the United Nations is to prevent war and maintain peace all over the world. Sometimes when there is danger of war between two nations, the UN sends a military force called the peacekeeping force to prevent wars. The second aim is to develop friendly relations between nations. All member nations of the UN are expected to ensure that human rights are upheld in the country. It is expected from the richer nations to help the poor countries through which UN wants to achieve international cooperation which can solve economic and social problems. To help fight disease and preserve the environment. The United Nations follows some principles which are: all the countries that are members of the UN are equal, whether they are developed or undeveloped. All the member countries must obey the rules written in the Charter. Countries must try to settle their differences by peaceful means. The UN will not interfere in the domestic affairs of any country. So, UN has a structure. Let me explain you the structure of the United Nations. The UN has 5 different organs or bodies which have different functions. The General Assembly, the Security Council, the Secretariat, the Economic and Social Council, the International Court of Justice. Let's talk about the General Assembly. It is the main organ of the UN. It is made up of all 193 member countries. Each country has one vote. It meets every year. Discussions on all actions of the UN are held in the General Assembly, in which every member country can put their views. And important decisions require a 2/3 majority. Next is the Security Council. It is the most powerful organ of the UN. It is responsible for maintaining international peace and restoring it. All the member countries have to accept its decisions. It has 15 members. 5 of them have permanent seats. These are the United States of America, United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. The permanent members have the power to veto or overrule any majority resolution. What is veto power? Veto power is the power of a state to forbid or stop an official action, especially enactment of a law. And remaining 10 members of the Security Council are elected each for 2 years. Next is the Secretariat. The people who work in the UN, that is, the staff members, form the Secretariat. The head of the Secretariat is the Secretary General. His work is to carry out the decisions of the Security Council. He is a powerful person. The Secretary General is chosen by the General Assembly for the period of 5 years. At present, Antonio Guterres is the Secretary General of the UN. The Economic and Social Council. It works under the General Assembly and looks after those programs of the UN which provide help to developing nations. It also looks after the work of several agencies that work for poor and needy. Programs related to health and education and culture. There are some special agencies who work for UN. The work of the UN is carried out by the specialized agency. The member countries pay for the work of these agencies. The richer nation pays more for food, health, and education. First special agency is UNICEF, United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. It is responsible for children welfare. It conducts different programs in developing countries. It ensures that the food, health, and educational needs of children are met. Next, UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. As the name suggests, its aim is to encourage nations to work together in areas of education, science, and culture. It was established by the UN in 1946. It educates people about health and farming, etc. Next special agency is WHO, World Health Organization. It was established in 1948. Its aim is to improve health of people worldwide. It trains health workers and provides information about the epidemics. Next is FAO, that is Food and Agricultural Organization. Its main aim is freedom from hunger. It helps nations to increase food production and arrange food for the areas which have shortage of food. Next and last is ILO, International Labour Organization. Its aim is to improve the working conditions and living standards of the working class. Achievements of the UN. The UN has tried to prevent tension or wars between countries, in which it has been largely successful. The UN has also played an important part in arms control, especially in preventing the use of nuclear weapons. The UN has been very successful in its fight against poverty, disease, and illiteracy. It has also achieved success in improving cultural cooperation among countries. Now, India has contributed a lot to the United Nations. Let's see. India has been a member of the United Nations since it was formed in 1945. Indian armed forces have been used as peacekeeping forces. India is not a permanent member of the UN Security Council, but India has been elected several times for a seat in the Security Council. India actively opposed the policy of considering blacks as inferior to whites in South Africa. This policy was known as apartheid. Many Indians are working in the UN agencies. India played a prominent role in putting forward the concern of the developing countries at the United Nations. So students, this is all about the United Nations. I hope you have understood the chapter. Thank you very much.